welcome to Hire We Go, where we're chatting all things talent acquisition transformation. Whether you're an HR vet or someone who's simply fascinated by how to find, attract, and engage talent, you are in the right place. I'm your host and Director of Solutions here at Joveo, Ashlie Collins, and joining us today is William Tincup of WRKdefined. Thank you so much for joining us today, William. Why don't you kick things off by telling us a little bit more about yourself and WRKdefined?
I decided to introduce myself this way. Think of a person that stays in an industry for 25 years. And because that person is on the bipolar spectrum, if you will, it's called hypermania, if you really want to get into hypomania. I don't have a filter. I've lived a very colorful life because I grew up in the 80s. So if you have somebody that's been in automotive or in convenience stores or food service and they're a character, that's me. But for HR tech, and which includes both the practitioner side of recruiting and HR and the technology that serves them. So think of a person that's just stayed in a place for a long time. That's me.
I love that. I can join you in this staying in a place for a long time. And I'm curious to get your take from a people, process, and tech perspective. How do companies decide what needs to be automated, augmented, and or humanized in recruiting? And I got a cheeky second question to tie in here. And how often do they need to rethink these things?
Right. So out of the three, you can do three Ps. If you do people, process, people, process, product, and you can make it to three Ps, maybe even publish a book. Anywho, there's layers to those three. There's ones that are more important. People think of them as equal. No, we got to get them all right. No, you don't. You've got to get process right. You've got to nail process and then train your people on that process. And then you can go get tech. And the way that you can prove this to yourself really easy is you can put inferior technology on a superior process and it works. You cannot do the reverse. You cannot put an inferior product on or a superior product on an inferior process and it works. So you've got to make sure that as a practitioner, especially if you're leading, you get everybody on the same page. There's three of these. We spend an inordinate amount of time, disproportionate amount of time, trying to find the tech, the product. And that's a waste of time. We should be focused mostly on process. What is our process? And then you'll get the product. They're out there. So, and then what was the second part of your question? Sorry.
Yes, how often do folks need to be rethinking things?
Well, I used to say 18 months pre-AI because you had enough time to kind of layer it and listen to people and kind of fix things that got a little bit off sideways or stuff like that. But with AI, I think it's more like 6 months. Because of just the speed of change for everybody, candidates, hiring managers, recruiters, everything's changing for them so fast. I think you have to revisit your process that fast.
Do you think that'll ever accelerate to like 3 months even? Or do you think?
Yeah. Once they solve the problem for quantum computing and they can cool the machine down, it's going to take AI and make that like nothing. So yeah, it's just gonna be one of those deals that with another kind of huge technological breakthrough, which we don't know if it's this year or 40 years from now. No one knows when that's going to happen, but when it happens, it will change the game again. But with AI, the generative AI, agentic AI, and machine learning, I think you could see it creep closer to 3 months. A lot of it is just listening to people, listening to the hiring managers. How's everything going? Recruiters, candidates. If you've got your ear to the ground, you're listening to them, you'll find out what's broken. And that ticket system, if you will, if you think of it like that, if that thing starts ramping up, you've got to revisit your process. If you're touching in and listening to them, then maybe the process, maybe you can extend it. to 9 months or 12 months or hell, even 18 months if your process is that good.
Yeah. And I think I like that entire concept. I was in a meeting last week, and we had our chief architect out with us, and we were kind of a lot of what you talked about came up, like how quickly things are changing, how much you need to, where we used to solve for problems that are 5 years away, now we're solving for problems that are 15 months away. And he said something that really stuck with me, and I think it applies to what you're saying, is it like we don't have, the problem isn't like solving problems, right? As a tech provider, we can solve problems. The problem is picking the right problem to solve. Like, we have a problem picking problem.
Well, and it almost becomes, so you can do this. This is the like observational research where you're sitting at the end of the ketchup aisle and you look at somebody and they kind of look at a couple different, and then at one point they throw one of them in their basket, but you don't know why. You know they did it, but you don't know why. And so when problems like let's say from a technological perspective, this is on the roadmap. Well, everything's on the roadmap, right? Cloning chickens is on the roadmap. Everything's on the roadmap. That's just kind of how that goes. Do you have it? No, it's on the roadmap. All right. If you listen to your customers, you'll get 50% of what needs to be on the roadmap. You won't get it all because they can't conceive of the things that they need in large parts. They can't articulate it to you. And so you look at the problems and you're like, okay, your product team's got to go and get the customer advice. Check. That's important. Maybe look at competitors. Check. That's good. And then at one point go, okay, what's the biggest problem? Let's go solve that one, and then just start working down the list.
And to your point, if they can map out their process, we can spot the problem. So that, I think there's so much that ties into.
But right now, if you just solve for your customers, we got to get response times, because these candidates, especially with half of millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha, their attention span is they look at it, they're interested in it, and that's their moment of attention. If you don't strike that fast, you've already lost them. They're gone. So, and that's not a bad thing. That's not an attack on the different generations. That's just the way the world works. It's just the way it is. Like no hate, no hate on that. It's just you've got to capture that moment of attention. And so, how fast can you capture that moment of attention and then do something with it?
Yeah, and that makes me think, just kind of leading into the last question, like talking about solving problems. If you had a magic wand, my friend, what would you change about talent sourcing in 2020?
Talent sourcing, it's a random idea. I want candidates to actually help us with the sourcing. So riddle me this: why is it hard to source candidates? Why has it ever been hard to source candidates? Because they hide. They don't make it easy. So could we just magic wand? In fact, I have the Joveo magic wand right here. So the thing is, it's a mindset shift for candidates, for people. I don't believe in active and passive. I think it's just candidates. So let's strip away that stuff. And it's just like, why is it difficult to find you? Like, why can't we make it easier? And some of that could be LinkedIn. Some of it is maybe everyone has their website, or everyone has just a blank links page to all of their social media. Great. As long as one of those things is just something about work, great. But we put the onus, this is the craziest part. When a candidate becomes an employee, then they start seeing how the business works, and the business's job, the employer's job, is to make their life better. Work doesn't have to suck, all this type of stuff. Well, but when they're a candidate, it's always historically been hard to find the right people. So why that dynamic? Why don't they want to be found? Everyone, even if you love your job, that's great. You love your job. You know what? Tomorrow you might not. And now we've got to figure out how to find you. So if I could change anything, I would change the mentality of candidates to want to be found, not just in a down market or early stage career or any of that type of stuff. But at any phase in their career, just make it easy for people to follow you and find you, and then put opportunities in front of you. You don't have to take the opportunities. You know, I mean, that's the thing is like you can always say, nah, not. I love the. It's a cool gig. I'm just not in a place. I can't move to Alaska. You know, one of those types of bits.
I love that. I feel a psychology rabbit hole that I'm going to be going down in the future. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your insights, and thank you all for tuning in. And we will catch you next time.